Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Chabi Dubey, and welcome once again to our online session where we will be discussing the block BSW121, that is professional social work. So, yesterday we had started with the second block, and we have discussed about the emergence of social work and how usually at times we find that social work is a bit confused with other aspects like other concepts such as charity, such as voluntary actions, and we have also discussed a number of factors that generally lead to such problems, and why in many countries still you find that social work is not given the place that it needs to occupy or that it deserves as one of the professions. Then we have also started with some other aspects, like we were discussing about the principles, the basic principles that are required to carry out various aspects of social work in terms of when we are doing social case work, social group work, when we are working with individuals, when we are working with we also discuss the six different methods of social work in terms of social case work, social group work, community organization, and the three secondary methods or auxiliary methods like social research, social work research, social welfare administration, and social action. Okay, so we have discussed all of these things in our class yesterday. Today we are supposed to discuss to start with the third unit, which is basically voluntary action and social work in India. Now, this is more in the context of the of India, where we are going to study the voluntary action in social work and the areas of interventions through voluntary actions and also its implications. We will also be studying the relevance of voluntary actions, why it is important to have these voluntary actions in the first place. So we will be taking all this up. So I will be sharing my screen with you all, so you can just go through the LMS with me. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with the third unit, that is the voluntary action and social work in India. Now, in this unit, we are going to basically study the nature of voluntary action, what exactly voluntary action is all about, what is the importance of having voluntary actions, factors motivating voluntary actions, why do people provide voluntary services at this in the first place, how has what has been the the emergence of voluntary service in India, um, then the role of social worker in voluntary actions, how social workers can participate, what is the role of government in voluntary actions, and what are the emerging trends in the voluntary action. So these are some of the things that we are supposed to know by the end of this unit. Now, first of all, we will just try to define exactly what voluntary action is. So we know the term voluntary action, it refers to the initiatives undertaken by people independently towards the achievement of common goals and objectives. So, voluntary actions are basically initiatives which are taken up by individuals or by people independently towards the achievement of common goals and objectives. So, this is something that they do themselves. Okay, they will participate in these actions themselves. Lord Beveridge describes voluntary action as that action which is not directed or controlled by the state. So we find that voluntary actions is something which is done, initiated by the individual himself or herself. So the government will not be directing the voluntary actions or controlling the voluntary actions. Okay. Voluntary action or agency is one which is not initiated and governed by any external control, but by its own members. So, voluntary bodies or voluntary agencies are those agencies which come into existence on their own. They get into they develop different objectives or goals depending upon their own interest, and basically they are motivated to participate in those actions, to contribute to those objectives, and they are not controlled by the government per se. I mean, they are not directed by the government to do that work. This is something which comes from their own interest, from it comes from within. Now, voluntary action, it presupposes the perception of the need of the community or a section of the society, and its assessment that the need can be met, and its readiness to regard it a duty to mobilize itself to meet the need. So generally, voluntary actions will always be, given or always be carried out with a view to carry out to provide certain service to the community. When they feel that there is a felt need, to participate in meeting those needs. And also, this is very important uh, for the functioning of a proper democracy, and it serves as a training ground for potential leadership of of the community. So these volunteers are actually the potential leaders, because they will help in broadening the scope of social justice, the concept of social justice. So social justice is all about providing equal opportunities to everybody, irrespective of their socio-cultural or economic background. Okay, so it is about basically, uh, you know, removing all kind of disparities, giving equal or a level playing field to the members of this community, and voluntary action in this manner, it helps to broaden this concept, and it also helps in continually focusing the attention of the members on its problems and needs. So volunteers will continuously be, mobilizing the resources, mobilizing the people of the community in order to concentrate on the problems, on the immediate problems and the needs of the community, and to work towards their resolution. It also promotes the acceptance by the individual citizens of their social and civic responsibilities, and gives them an opportunity to learn to work cooperatively. So, this is how voluntary action is very important. It is also they also have the freedom to initiate work in controversial areas. So, in many times, you will find that voluntary action can also initiate some work in the controversial areas, or where people generally do not want to, participate, or they generally avoid participating in because of the controversial nature of work. So, in several countries, you will find that this voluntary action will be there, and most of these actions are directed towards the cause of the needy, and generally they have persisted till the till the government agencies were established to undertake the particular services. So, generally, you will find that these voluntary work, specifically in the earlier times, they were very relevant. Not to mention, even today, they have a great deal of relevance. But earlier, when the government's role in the welfare work was very limited, these voluntary agencies or these volunteers have contributed a great deal to working for the needs of the, for the deprived sections of the population. And it is also found to be more flexible and free from bureaucratic rigidity, because you know that when we talk about government or governmental agencies, there's a lot of bureaucratic rigidities that are there. So basically, governments, they will work within some limitations. Okay, they are bound by the rules and regulations, they are bound by their limitations. But this is not the case with volunteerism. Voluntary action can be, it carries out more flexible work. Government will always be, the government agencies will always be, you can say that they will be, controlled by the rules and regulations of the land. There will be some formalities that they will have to go before they can actually take up some steps to provide, some kind of solution to the problems of the people. But this is not the case with the voluntary agencies and voluntary volunteers. Now, the most common limitation which arises out of the limited resources is voluntary agencies have at their disposal. Generally, what happened, though voluntary services are very important, voluntary services are basically, they have a lot of advantages, and also they have, they are more flexible. They have the advantage of ensuring public cooperation. Also, their operational cost is quite minimum. But despite of these, there are a lot of limited limitations that arise, for these voluntary agencies because of the lack of resources and that they have at their disposal. And the sporadic character of voluntary action leads to instability. Now, you will find that generally volunteers are not there in every part, or the same kind of voluntary activities will not be there in every part, of the country or in that particular area. Generally, they are quite sporadic in nature. They financially, these agencies are not very sound, as they depend a lot on the public contribution, sometimes even grants or assistance from the, and that is why these have certain limitations of their own. Now, next we will come to some of the conceptual clarity between the voluntary action and the social work. So, from the definition, we find that there is a lot of difference between voluntary actions and social work. So, voluntary action is something which is not under the direction of any authority wielding the power of the state. Okay, so this is definitely there. And social work, on the other hand, is a very much a professional discipline. Okay, and a lot of the work that the social workers do comes within the, the purview of the government and the governmental agencies. Then the nature of voluntary action, voluntary workers are generally, they give their unpaid services. Okay, mostly volunteerism is generally something which is unpaid. They do it because they find that they want to do it because maybe they have interest in them. It is something that um, which they think is something that they need to contribute, but normally we will find that social workers, on the other hand, the services given by the social workers are generally paid. They are always paid services. And generally, you can say that nowadays, in most of the active voluntary organizations, you will have them, staffed, they will be staffed by very highly trained, paid professional workers. It is not that you don't have social workers working in these voluntary organizations, but over a period of time, the nature of voluntary action has changed a lot. And social work and voluntary action. Social work has ensured the protection of human rights through various social legislations. And you see that besides social legislations, they also tackle problems like, like social legislations, they also tackle problems like untouchability, marriage, child marriage. Now, these are some of the problems, social problems that are very pertinent to the case of India. There are a lot of problems, but mostly there are general problems also, like, trafficking, human trafficking, then things like substance abuse, all of these things. This is something which are some of the problems which are faced by the community at large. And the emerging new notion of social service as a force, an instrument in the promotion of planned social change and development, this enlarges the scope of professional social work activity. which was traditionally associated with fields like child welfare, family welfare, medical and psychiatric social work, correctional social work, all of these things. So these were generally considered to be the very traditional schools of social work. But now social workers have taken up new and responsibilities, and they are getting into more and more newer areas of work. Now, voluntary organization, it's an organization, whether its workers are paid or unpaid, generally initiated and governed by its own members without external control. Now, the independence of voluntary action does not, however, mean a lack of cooperation between it and the public action. Okay? But generally, it means that the agency undertaking it has a will and a life of its own. So these voluntary organizations are not outside the government. They are independent, but they are very much controlled by the government. They have to do everything which is within the, uh, you know, uh, uh, laws and regulations as stipulated by the law. So they cannot do something which is not allowed by the government there. But then they have a life of its own. They can carry out the administration of its own. They are not dependent on the government for a lot of things. Then, and there also you will find that there's a lot of cooperation between the voluntary organizations and the government. Many a times you will find that the governments will also be taking the help of these voluntary organizations to carry out its activities, to carry out the welfare programs. They may also be cooperating on other matters also, like generally, as defined by the National Council of Social Service, a voluntary social service is interpreted generally as the organization and activities of a self governing body of people who have joined together voluntarily to study or act for betterment of the community. So, generally, you will find that you will have people who will join together for a particular cause, which is generally directed for the betterment of the community. Okay, and these are basically, this is a self-governing body of people, so they are basically not controlled by anything outside of them, but they are self-governing, okay, in nature. Now now we find that social workers, they work with clients at micro level, at meso level, and at the macro level. So micro level is basically working with individuals and family. Meso level is at working with the community, and macro level is basically working nationally and as well as internationally. So concerns for human rights, they are manifested by social workers at all levels. So you have, these concerns which are taken up at international level, at national level, at community level, family level. All of these are concerned with the protection of individuals and group needs. And generally, you will find that um, more than other professional social workers, their concerns are closely linked with the respect for these human rights. So they accept the premise that human rights and fundamental freedoms are indivisible, and for any realization of civil and political rights, it is impossible to realize these rights without enjoying the social, economic, and the cultural rights. So, civil and political rights, they can be enjoyed only when there is economic, social, and cultural rights available to the people. Now we will see the areas of interventions and implications of voluntary action. Okay. Now, first, we will understand the factors which motivate voluntary action. So there are a couple of factors that may be involved, which may motivate people to take up volunteerism. These may be in terms of religion. So many a times people are motivated by the missionary zeal, you know, with the commitment to work. Then second is government. Sometimes the government is, people will also, work as within the purview of these uh, uh, government work, where the government works for the public interest, and apart from them, business, philanthropy, mutual aid. These are some of the things, which motivate people to take up voluntary work. Sometimes you say that people are also fueled by altruism. Altruism means basically doing working for the betterment of the society, working, providing philanthropy and other works for the society. And generally, you will find that mutual aid and philanthropy are two main sources from which voluntary social service organizations generally have developed. So, mutual aid and philanthropy, they spring from individual and social conscience. Okay, they may be personal. There may be factors like personal interest. So, why some person has a personal interest in a particular issue, seeking benefits such as experience. People may get into volunteerism basically to gain experience, recognition, to get recognition from the society or the community, to gain knowledge and prestige, commitment to certain values. Maybe they are committed to certain values like social rights or women empowerment, and that is why they want to do it. So these are some of the factors. They may also be responsible for this volunteerism. Um, Normally, a lot many times you will find that a variety of impulses are also responsible for, for formation of voluntary associations, where people, they want to serve their fellow men or generally the downtrodden. And voluntary organizations are strong agents of political socialization. Okay, they educate their members about social norms and values, and also they at times, many a times, people join voluntary action for security, for self expression, and for satisfaction of interest. So psychological motivations, it's a very complex phenomena, and it may vary from individual to individual. So, for example, a person who may have lost a member of the family to maybe an attack by some extremist group, or maybe an individual who may have lost a member of the family to some, terminal disease, may volunteer to work for people who are suffering from the same disease, or may volunteer to cause, for such families who have lost. Members to same to similar such situations. So this can be some of the motivations also. This is one of the very important psychological motivation for voluntary association. Now here we will look into the voluntary organizations at a glance. Okay, now by and large you can say that voluntary actions generated through social, religious and cultural organizations. So you have a lot of social organizations that that participate in voluntary work, religious organizations, as well as the cultural organizations who participate in the voluntary work. Okay, now volunteers volunteers may not always work through in a particular organization. Sometimes you may have people volunteering for a particular cause. For example, you find a lot of people who volunteer whenever there is a sudden natural calamity, like earthquake or whatever, and they just want to work and help the rescue forces, helping the people, to help the people, to save the people and rescue them. So it's not like that always they want to work through or in a particular organization. They may volunteer for some cause without getting being a part of an organization. Now the sphere of social service is still very largely the domain of voluntary workers and voluntary organizations, because still now, as we have already seen, that social work is in many countries is finding, or it's struggling to actually come out of the shadows of social service. Still, social work service is largely carried out through voluntary workers and voluntary organizations, and generally they dominate the sphere of social service. There is no complete reliable data about the total number of voluntary organizations, in at least in India. But many of them, since many of them are not receiving government aid, many of these organizations are basically self-sustaining organizations. You will find that many organizations are self-sustaining, and since they do not get any aid from the government, the government do not have much reliable data on this. And there are a number of organizations concerned with a wide range of activities, maybe at national level, others at district level or state level. Now, there are a number of organizations which are non governmental organizations which are working for different causes. There could be diverse political and other interests contributing to the strengthening of solidarity, participative characters to participative in enhancing the participative character of democracy. Then there may also be some working into the field of tackling social evils and working to provide for the unmet needs of people, and so on and so forth. So many of the NGOs, non-governmental organizations, they act as a stabilizing force by welding together people into groups that are not politically motivated. So basically, most of them are not may actually formulate non-political groups. So they may not be very politically motivated, but they are basically concerned in providing awareness on the basic political characteristic of the society or countries. Okay, for example, there may be some organizations which are fighting for the rights of women and children, fighting for the political participation of women, fighting for so many other issues which may be political or non-political. Then there are also some government-aided organizations or NGOs, okay, like cooperative societies, a lot of cooperative societies. Then Nehru Yuva Kendras or NYK, you call them, they are available. They are available. These are organizations which are actually getting some kind of sponsorships from the governments. And so there are a lot of organizations like that who are being provided grants from the organizations. They may be working on various fields, like they may be working on the issues of youth empowerment or women empowerment, child development. They may be working on various aspects of cultural identity, maybe on even environment. So a lot of these organizations, they are getting some kind of uh, uh, you can say grants from the government, or to carry out their work. Many of them are actually self many of them are also maybe getting some grants from political level, sorry, from private organizations. Like many of them may be getting grants from some funding agencies, non-governmental funding agencies. Then sometimes they are also provided grants under the CSR, like the corporate social responsibility. They may also provide grants. And apart from this, many of them are also self, dependent. Many of them are actually self-sustaining. They may, carry out activities which help them to sustain themselves. So there are a number of organizations like that who are working in this field. Now, what are the various objectives of voluntary organizations? These are organizations are working for a number of objectives, like protection and development of children, welfare of women, not only in rural areas but also in urban areas, services for youth, community welfare, promotion of educational facilities, promotion of public conscience on social problems, promotion of moral standards and family welfare, prevention of diseases, okay, promotion of healthcare and other facilities, protection and welfare of the differently able people, eradication of any kind of social, discriminations, which is there for certain groups. Then they may be related to some spiritual upliftment of people. Okay, then promotion of international brotherhood, promotion of national interest through voluntary efforts, training of workers for the field work, or protection of nature and animals. So there are different organizations with different objectives in mind. Many of times, an organization may work for a particular objective. Sometimes it may have multiple objectives, which may, be interrelated to each other. For example, they may be working on the issue of women and children, and at the same time, they may be also dealing with issues of livelihood, okay, with issues of, training and so many other things. So basically, they may either be devoted to a single issue, or they may be devoted to multiple issues, multiple and related issues, depending upon the nature of the organization. Now, we say the basically the growth of the voluntary services in India. How did it come into being? So generally, we can say that in India, the voluntary organizations were known since ancient times. So there were a number of examples where people have contributed, voluntarily for the cause of some social issue, or maybe for the cause of, upliftment of the downtrodden. And the history and development of social welfare in India is primarily the history of the voluntary action. You can say that the roots can definitely be, traced back to the religious ethos promoting the concept of charity, to be given to people. Now, we will look into the pre 19th century voluntary services as it existed. Now, in the pre 19th century, it was mainly during the emergencies, like some kind of natural calamities like famines or floods or earthquakes, which led to a large scale of voluntary actions taking place here. So, according to one of the historians, Dr. P.V. Kane, the Chinese traveler Hyun Sang. Now, he was a Chinese traveler who had come to India and who has visited various, parts of India during that period. He said that the Indian people, they voluntarily they planted trees to give shade to travelers. Okay, they often dug tanks as well as wells for the community. In medieval India, communities organized educational institutions, boardings, libraries for students. So all of these were basically, you can say that they were heavily endowed with the people, with the local people, with the local, businessmen, and so they used to give the money or grants, for upkeeping of these institutions, which could be used by the community in general. In the late 16th and 17th centuries, severe famine resulted in large scale poverties, and the kings responded very generously. Throughout the 18th century, we find that poverty was dealt by traditional means. Okay, that is individual philanthropy and religious charity. So a lot of charity work was done by people, and in this way they helped people in overcoming their difficult situations. Uh, then we come to the voluntary services post 19th century. So the case for voluntary services after the 19th century. Now, in the 19th century, we say that there were three directions in which voluntary services were manifested. One area of religious and spiritual tenets, mostly in the form of religious reforms. In the area of customary practices, social and ritualistic practices, mostly in the form of social reforms. And third, areas of new problems that demanded attention and solution as a result of urbanization. Okay, so these were the three areas in which the voluntary services were directed to post 19th century. Now, this period of now post 19th century is also very important in the history of India, because this marks the um, independence period of freedom struggle for Indians from the British control. And most of the you can say that the freedom movement of India was also one very important aspect of freedom movement, was that of the voluntary nature, or the voluntary actions that took place during that. There were a number of enlightened religious and social leaders who organized voluntary movements, like you can say the Arya Samaj, the Ramakrishna Mission, Theosophical Movement, Anjuman Himayat-e-Islam, and these were some of the other organizations, Servants of India Society. All of these were voluntary organizations which got a boost during the earlier 20th century. Okay, and a large number of people, they joined hands to work as volunteers. Now, in the political realm, when the people were fighting the Britishers, we know that I mean, you must have heard that basically the freedom struggle was led by Mahatma Gandhi in India. And so, have you heard of Mahatma Gandhi, by the way, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
You have heard of Mahatma Gandhi? Okay. So Mahatma Gandhi was basically, he led the freedom struggle in India, and he was not only a political scientist, but he was a reformer. He was a philosopher. He was a spiritual leader for the Indians. He is considered to be the father of India, and he basically reinforced volunteerism in the life, okay, of people, and gave a lot of importance to voluntary uh, services. He believed in the concept of political decentralization, of giving, that means, giving the political authority to the local people in through the local gram panchayats or the village panchayats, or what you call as a local self government. And for him, volunteerism was the key to the reconstruction of India's economic and political organization. And he thought, and he said that basically for the development of this country, um, voluntary work is one of the most important agency. Now, generally, you will find that during this period, a lot of uh, a number of agencies came into being, and they dealt with a lot of problems, social problems that India faced at that point of time. These were in terms of different kind of discriminations, social discriminations, which were there on different groups of people, poverty, and other kind of breaking down of traditional institutions, on religious reforms, on social reforms, inadequacy of welfare services for the people, then also against the atrocities committed by the Britishers. So a lot of these organizations, they came up during that period. Now, how has the voluntary services in the present century, spread in India? Now, basically, we find that after the independence, there were a lot of changes that took place. India got freedom in the year 1947 from the Britishers, and since then, a lot of changes have taken place in the Indian society in terms of the demography, in terms of the social structure, in terms of the cultural aspect, in terms of the economic aspect. And the government has increased its area of working to, welfare, whereby it is committed to providing welfare to the people in general, and also providing them social justice, you know and all of these, with the changes that took place by the 20th century, by the later part of the 20th century, these were in terms of the challenges which were created as a result of a fast a pace of urbanization, and also industrialization. Then a lot of issues came up during this time, issues related to environmental degradation, issues related to economic disparities or economic inequalities, issues related to some kind of social discrimination that was given to a number of people. So there were a lot of issues like that, and voluntary action became very much interested in working in these different areas of work. Okay. Also, with the rise of United Nations, we know that United Nations came into being in 1945, and the period of 1980s is generally considered to be a period where a number of voluntary actions and the non-governmental organizations, they actually came into the fore, and a lot many people, they started opening such organizations basically to provide support to the government in its welfare action. Now we come to the relevance of voluntary action and social work. What is the relevance of voluntary action as far as social work is concerned? So generally, a professional social worker contributes by, in the planning and the development of welfare services. Okay, and the emergence of the professional group has of course raised all the usual problems of the relationship between professional and the non-professional individuals who are involved. So the situation is further complicated that the non-professional is not only non-socialized in professional values and skills, but is usually a person who generally does not derive livelihood from this vocation. Generally, you will find that these volunteers are working in some different other area, and okay, they are only giving their voluntary services, out of interest or maybe out of some personal, commitment to work. And but for a social worker, you will find that social workers are actually drawing their livelihood from this particular professions. Okay, and also another thing is that professional social workers are trained in various techniques. Okay, and they are generally trained in the various techniques of social work, but usually what happens, the salaries in the non-governmental sectors, they are not very much at par like in other sectors. Although now this situation is changing, and even in countries like India, which were earlier not attracting a lot of talent in social work, nowadays we have more and more people getting into social work because of the attractive salaries and because of the importance of this profession given in every aspect of development. So of course a lot of changes are taking place now. Now, professional social worker and the voluntary social worker. um, so basically the question comes whether do we need voluntary social workers or do we need a professional social worker? See, important is that a professional person who is well equipped, to participate in various activities on account of his or her training, her knowledge of, various techniques and methods. They cannot be a substitute for a voluntary, um, uh, a lay leader. You can say that they are equipped with knowledge and skills to handle the problems. Okay, and also for institutional management and interpersonal and intergroup relations. Okay, being paid persons with a sense of pride in their profession, for their work, they are in a position to efficiently do that job. Okay, but they cannot easily move a community to accept wholly new ideas. So there is where the importance of a voluntary social worker comes into being, because they are driven not only by the salary, but they are also driven by an internal force or an internal, you can say, that motivation to basically, they are committed to that particular work. Now I'm not saying that the professional social workers are not committed. They are definitely committed. Most of them are working in the professional sector, because they are committed to a particular cause. They feel that it is important. But we must understand that sometimes, that simple, um, this that feeling that the individuals have inside, when they are totally committed to a particular cause, maybe because of some in because of some personal reason or for whatever reason, that is something which gives a great deal of motivation even to other persons. And you will find that most of the times it is these voluntary workers who actually lead a particular movement, who lead the community in resolving the some problem or conflict. So they are definitely very much required in this field. Now, uh, social worker in voluntary action depends upon the training she has received, okay, to be scientific in his outlook, skills, and knowledge of social relationships. Special contribution in this field is a discovery and interpretation of social sciences, and he or she is equipped to undertake this task for the benefit of the community. Now, social function, the professionals, they generally seek the volunteers' help, interest, and participation, and to enable her to find opportunities for her work. Professionals can also make a contribution in the formation of social policies. So, um, it is needless to say that since both are working in this field, both can become very strong cooperators with each other. They can cooperate with each other, they can work in close collaboration, they can help each other in numerous ways, and in this way they can actually create opportunities for each other. So the professionals can help in contributing for the formation of social policies. They are very much well equipped to study different handle different situations. They are also well equipped to utilize or you know uh, to apply the various methods as well as techniques of social work. Okay, they are also having a lot of information about the principles and values that are there when you are working with people. So therefore, we will find that they can have a better outlook on these issues than non-professional workers. But they need these non-professional workers because of the sheer, motivation that they have for that particular issue, and also for their, um, the close, maybe you can say that the close contact that they have with the community, and also the place that they have developed with the community over a period of time. So that is why we see that these non-professional or these voluntary social workers, they are also required at the same time. Now, what is the role of voluntary organizations in social welfare? So this is one question. Now, social and economic development program, which started with the 14-point construction program. It was used as a springboard to accelerate the process of political struggle for independence in India, okay, and also to activate the underprivileged masses, okay, to develop themselves economically and socially on a self-help through mutual help basis. Now, a network of voluntary agencies were created at this point of time through the constructive programs like village industries, the like Khadi, Night Talim, leprosy work, Harijan Seva, all of these with the help of selfless and dedicated workers. This was the basis of social welfare programs by the voluntary organizations in the post independent period. Now, the main objective of planned development is basically to mobilize the known as well as the hidden material and human sources in such a way so as to improve the socio-economic living conditions of the people to the maximum at a given point of time. Now, voluntary organizations have very important role to play in the overall economic and industrial development of the country, and also motivating people to eliminate various evils which influences, the society. Through the voluntary organizations, they do not have much role to play in transport and communication, though their role is limited, but they play an important role in construction and maintenance of some very important infrastructure. Now, important of the voluntary services and social welfare. Voluntary organizations, they play very important role in social welfare. Through various working through various issues like maybe education. They can also help in health, in housing, in providing welfare services to the weak and the underprivileged, also working for the welfare of the differently abled sections of the population, and all of these. So basically, they have a lot of important role to play in society. Now, whenever we can say that social development happens, social development enhances the capacity of individuals to provide and contribute for their own well-being as well as for the well-being of the society. So it is here that the voluntary organizations, they play a very important role in pushing the programs of social development forward. The voluntary organizations, they have traditionally worked in the field of social welfare. Certain state welfare organizations, they have also supplemented voluntary efforts, particularly in the field of prostitution, in the field of beggary, juvenile delinquency, etc. They emphasize the welfare aspect, particularly because state policy focuses primarily on giving financial and legislative assistance to the state welfare organizations. Okay, now they have given here some of the examples, like, a lot of how successfully some of the major voluntary actions they started in India at that point of time, like you have the Bhudan movement. Then you have the Satya Shodak Samaj, and so many other voluntary organizations that came up during the post-independent era to carry out the social development part. Now, um, okay. Now, what is the role of government in voluntary actions? How are they related to each other? Generally, you will find that generally external agents, they do not control voluntary actions. We already know that voluntary actions are very much done by the individuals, but the government um, has accepted it as a major means of social welfare, and they provide financial assistance without directly being involved in the functioning of these voluntary organizations. So you will find that a lot of these organizations are getting financial assistance from the government, but the government do not participate directly in the functioning of these organizations. Most of the time, we will find that these voluntary organizations, they have also been involved in participating in the government's welfare programs. So they will help the government in their welfare program, in implementing these welfare programs, and the problem of coordinating the activities of government and the non-government agencies, it's more difficult, it becomes quite difficult at times to coordinate their activities. Now, how do they coordinate? How do they carry out different activities in different fields? So that is why the Planning Commission of India, it kind of attempted to establish a liaison between the two efforts. They said that you can associate the NGOs in the process of planning. Okay, then some government sponsored programs can be entrusted to NGOs for implementation. And you can also promote the growth of NGOs through program of grants in aid. So that is how they said that this way, a good liaising between the government and these voluntary organizations can be done. Any kind of confusion between the roles that they are going to play, that can also be done away with. Okay, so that is how the government and the NGOs, they function together in cooperation with each other. Now, what are the emerging trends in voluntary actions now? Now we find that with changing society, with changing times, with changing needs, as well as changing problems, and there are a lot of new areas that have emerged. So earlier, these worked generally included education, child welfare, family welfare, women emancipation, and so on. Now you have a lot of work going on in terms of providing for alleviating poverty and promoting nutrition. Works involving the rights of people on the human rights, also problems and challenges related to migration, human trafficking. There are so many now different areas that are coming up where specifically areas related to ecological degradation, areas related to pollution, areas on basically other social challenges that may be there. So there are a lot of new areas or challenges emerging nowadays, and that is why the scope of the voluntary organization has enhanced further. Okay, so you will find that nowadays, with the change in the overall, society, with the social changes that have come up, the needs of these organizations, the various challenges that these organizations face, the type of issues that are taken up by these organizations, that is changing a lot. They're also looking into the rights of the minorities, like sexual minorities. They are looking into a lot of other areas where they have not dwelled before, where these organizations have not worked before. So, looking into the issues of the migrants, okay, even, um, so all of these are the new issues which are coming up, new challenges which are faced by the government across the world, and thus these organizations, they see their scope is actually increasing, their areas of work is expanding, new areas are now coming up within their ambit. So this is how you can say that now their work and their texture has become increasingly complex. So this is all about the voluntary action in India. After that, we will come to the social work ethics in the Indian context. Now, although this may be more in the terms of Indian context, but one thing is for sure that basically the ethics that we will study under this may not be limited to India only. This can be there. These ethics can be very much a part of the social work process going on in other countries as well. Here we are going to understand basically what ethics is, the philosophy behind ethics. We are going to understand the code of ethics of social work and how its application in social work situations, how can it be applied to the social work situations. Now, one of the major problems that the Indian society is facing, and this is also some of the problems which may be relevant to many other countries as well, is the facing societies society problems facing problems related to abuse of power and authority, corruption, and the social discrimination. Now, social workers, they are very much a part of the society, so definitely a lot of influence on their values is there of the society. Basically, society has a lot of influence on their values. their personalities, they would have internalized these values, and consciously or unconsciously, their behavior also reflects these values. But social work advocates values radically different from these values. So most of us, we come from a specific cultural context, from a religious context, and most of these, and they have a lot of bearing on our personality, bearing on our thought process, bearing on our philosophy. But social work is values. They are needed so that the professional behavior of individuals is guided by these values. Okay. Another issue related to ethics is that most of them are based on Western experience, and their applicability in other countries is very much questioned. So this is, uh, you know, relevant not only for India but also for a lot of countries. Now, here they have given some cases where they have to clarify the importance of values and ethics in social work practice. Okay, the first case is that of an administrator where you're sending applications of poor families to the government agencies and asking for financial aid. So your subordinates wants you to reduce the annual income of the families, so they may feel that they may improve their chance of getting the aid. So, uh, though, so are you going to knowingly misrepresent information to help the families? So basically, these are some of the case situations that has been given here. How can you, what kind of values or ethical considerations that you will have to consider for these, under these situations? So these are different situations that they have put up. All of these situations, they give some kind of questions. They open up questions to us, which we have to answer as a professional social workers. How we feel about this. Now, most of these deals with situations in which all options available seem to be right from one perspective or another. Okay, like um, so basically, you can just go through these, examples, and so you will understand basically what they are talking about. And so here, these are instances where ethics in social work is specifically required, where you will be facing such situations during your work as a social worker, and how these ethics can help you to take decisions which would be to uphold the not only the profession but also your own your own values as a social worker. Now, we will look into the concept of ethics. The word ethics is derived from the Greek meaning custom, which is the branch of axiology. This is one of the four major branches of philosophy which attempts to understand the nature of morality. Okay, it will distinguish what is right from what is wrong. And it is also called as moral philosophy. Ethics is also called moral philosophy as it is concerned with what is right and what is wrong. It involves making decisions of a moral nature about people and also their interaction in society. Now, ethics is generally defined as philosophical discipline which is concerned with human contact and moral decision making. Ethics can be divided into two sections here. One is what is known as normative ethics, and the other, which is known as meta ethics. Normative ethics deals with the principles we live by. Okay, so normative ethics is basically deals with the principles that we live by, and meta ethics, on the other hand, it has a larger concern and it deals with the nature and methodology of moral judgment. Okay, so it will deal with the basis on which decisions should be made. So, should the ultimate consequences of the decision, for example, by promoting happiness or promoting perfectionism in society. Religious people base their decisions on what they believe to be the will of God and on God's word. And social workers, we are interested in ethics so that our relationship with our clients, our colleagues, our supervisors, and our subordinates are within the framework of the social work values. Okay, so we will be studying ethics from a different perspective altogether. Now, social works, we have seen it rejects social Darwinism and utilitarianism, which means that basically these social Darwinism is a modern name which is given to the theories of society that emerged in the United Kingdom, North America, and Western Europe in 1870s. And they apply the biological concept of natural selection and survival of the fittest to society. Okay, that is why they say that it is basically the survival of the fittest. And utilitarianism is a system of ethics according to which the rightness or wrongness of an action should be judged by its consequences. So there are a lot of different theories that existed. The goal of utilitarian ethic is to promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Now, but social work, which initially emerged in the Western countries, including USA, this was definitely influenced by the Judeo-Christian values. As the profession began to spread to the Gulf and other parts of Asia, you find that the religious traditions of these countries also influence the social work profession in these regions. So, of course, we know that a lot of times the religious, traditions that are followed by the different regions, they influence social work professions. And the social workers, they are trying to incorporate indigenous values into the profession so that the profession gets better recognition and acceptance from the people. And this process will be an extended one, as most post colonial societies are yet to recover from the colonial experiences. So, a lot of them are still under the intellectual and academic influence of the colonial countries, and they are still trying to recover from this. So, uh, this process is definitely going to take time in these countries. We also find that scientific values and methods have influenced the practice of social work. And it may seem strange that social work is influenced by two seemingly contrary values of science and religion. Social work rejects those religious values and advocate that an individual suffer due to otherworldly reasons, like God's anger or predestination. It believes that every individual has a capacity to solve his or her problem when he or she is provided the necessary resources. So consequently, factors that cause an individual's problems or social problems are identified using scientific methods, namely observation, description, classification, and explanation. So these are some of the scientific methods that we use in social work. Solutions are based on rationality and, of course, are identified and formulated. So, some of the following values of and basis of social work include social justice, dignity and worth of individual, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. So, we have also, studied these values before. Professional social workers who deal with the human body, human psyche, and human relationships always have a code of conduct. Okay, just like doctors, they have a code of conduct which they have to follow. Doctors pledge to prescribe only beneficial treatment according to their abilities and judgment, and refrain from causing harm or hurt to the client, and to live an extremely personal and professional life, exemplary personal and professional life. Lawyers also, they have their own code of conduct, just like these. They have to follow when they are interacting with clients. These codes have evolved over a period of time, which these professions emerged in the society. Okay, now professions have their ethical codes. Okay, and they have a body of fellow professionals who are elected by the professional organizations to oversee their implementation. In advanced countries, we find that these bodies have very wide ranging powers. So like if you see these bodies in US or in UK or in other, Western country, we will find that these bodies will have a very wide-ranging powers to censure the offending member, sometimes impacting a fine on the member, and even revoking the member's license to practice. So, like when an former American president was found guilty of perjury, the bar association of his or her of his home state revoked his license to practice in the court of law. In India, also the license of a doctor actor was revoked by the medical council after it was alleged that he has advertised a medicine which did not meet the standards set by the council. So all of these are very high profile cases, which existed a political angle to the problem which led the respective associations to take such drastic steps. So you will find that in many of these countries, social work organizations, okay, or these professional bodies, they have a very, very powerful, role. Now, the question comes, what is the need for an ethical behavior in social work? Now, there are a lot of reasons why these ethics must be followed in social work. First of all, social workers, they have to interact with the clients, and sometimes they may have very sensitive information which they convey to the social workers. So they have to, it is under their, and this sensitive information needs to be, that it can be quite damaging to the client's cause. And that is why they have to strictly observe the principle of confidentiality. Then, social workers, they are often in situations where the decisions can cause serious damage to the client. Okay, they are very vulnerable emotionally, physically, and that is why sometimes when social workers may come up with something which may have a very you can say serious damage to the overall well-being of the client. So that is why social workers need to follow these ethics in their workplace. Social workers, they occupy position of authority in government and non-governmental organizations. So many times we see that social workers, they play a very important role in governmental and the non-governmental organizations. Then they are often in a position where they can allocate resources. Of course, we know that in most cases, allocating resources to one party means not allocating it to the others who are also needy. So generally, we will find that, for example, social workers may be asked whether a particular couple can be allowed to adopt a child or it should be given to another couple. So all of these can be, you can say that that they often become in a position where they can allocate resources. Then they have to preserve professional autonomy. Of course, they have important role to play in regulating their institution. Okay. So these are some of the reasons why social workers, they have to preserve they have to follow the ethics in the first place. Then we come to the purpose of a code of ethics. Now, National Associations of Social Workers, or NASW, is a professional body of social workers in the US, which has given six purposes to the code of ethics. So the first code identifies the core values on which basically on which social workers' mission is based. Okay, this code also summarizes the broad ethical, you can say, principles that reflect the profession's core values and establishes a set of specific ethical standards. Then, this code is also designed to help social workers identify relevant considerations. Okay, when professional obligations, conflictual or ethical uncertainties arise. That these codes also provide ethical standard to which the general public can hold the social work profession accountable. Also, the social specializes the practitioners new to the field to social work's mission, values, ethical principles, and ethical standards. And finally, the code articulates standards that the social work profession itself can use to assess whether workers have engaged in unethical conduct. So these are some of the purposes of the. After this, we come to the now. In India, these associations are not there. Okay, and just like India, I think in majority of the countries in Asia, these associations are not there, which command such authority among the social workers. So you find that some associations which are basically regional based have adopted a full book of code of ethics of their own. So some associations in India, they have developed some on regional basis they have developed a code of ethics, and these associations have limited selected members, and they therefore exclude the majority of the social workers of the country. And we also find that the government has also not recognized any body that has not entrusted anyone with the authority to regulate social work. Now, here we have tried to present a model of code of ethics which can be used in social work practice in the Indian context. So the social workers are encouraged to adhere to these codes even during the training period. So as one goes through these code, it will be noticed that ultimately it is a responsibility of the individual who has to maintain these standards. Okay, and external uh, agencies can only regulate the social workers' behavior up to a certain extent. Therefore, it can be necessary that we internalize these values and make them part of our personality. Okay. Any question related to what we have discussed till now? Any questions at all?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, we don't have any question.
Okay. So see, most of it is quite general, where you just have to understand the various code of ethics that are there, and how these ethics are important and relevant in a social work setting. Now, a model of code of ethics for the Indian social workers, since a code of ethics is not available as such, there is a code of ethics which has been a model. It's a model which is, given, um, which is based on the code of ethics of different associations of different countries. Okay. Now, these core values of these, include service, social justice, dignity, and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. So, the first code of ethics, it says that the social workers conduct and behavior as a social workers, and they should act that the social worker they should act in accordance with the highest standards of personal conduct as a social worker. Okay, then they should strive to achieve a high level of competence and proficiency in the practice of their profession. They need to have a great deal of competence and proficiency while they are working as a professional social worker. Then, with regard, social worker regards as primary and service obligation of the social work profession, and they should act in accordance with the highest standards of professional integrity and impartiality. Also, they should act in accordance with the highest standards of they must engage in study and research, which should be guided by conventions of scholarly inquiry. So basically, this is all about what you can say the social workers, conduct and behavior as a social worker. So this is all about that. After this, we come to the next code of ethics related to the ethical responsibility to clients. So here we know that the social worker's primary responsibility is towards the best interest of the client. So they have to, carry out work which is in the best interest of the client. They have to, they do not have to compromise on that. They cannot compromise on that at any cost. Uh, then also considering the rights and prerogatives of the clients, also considering that there are the clients, they come up with certain rights. One is the right to self determination, like they have the decision to take place. They have the they have the right to basically decide for how they want to go about with their life, what kind of decisions do they want to take. And so that right is definitely there with them. And confidentiality and privacy, this is also the that social workers, they have to maintain the confidentiality and privacy of the clients and not leak their information in the public front. Then we come to the ethical responsibility of the social workers toward the colleagues. So we know that we need to treat everybody with respect, fairness, and courtesy. Then, how do we deal with the colleagues, clients, if there is a responsibility to the clients of our colleagues, you know? And in case of absence of the colleagues, how can we deal with the clients that they are dealing with? Okay. Then the also the ethical responsibility towards the employers and those who are employing the social worker. So their work as the social worker, as an employee, what are the ethics that they have to follow? Their responsibility to the social work profession, including maintaining the integrity of the profession. Okay, assist the profession in making social services available to the general public, and also taking responsibility for identifying, developing, and fully utilizing knowledge for professional practice. Then there is also their ethical responsibility towards the society, where they have to promote the general welfare. So we find that this code of ethics, it is towards their discipline, it is towards the society and the community, towards their clients, towards their employer, and also towards their colleagues. Okay. Now, there are certain problems which are faced by the social workers in the ethical decision making. It may be due to the crisis of values. We find that a lot of time, there may be some crisis of values which may be there in every society, not just among Indian societies, but also in the every society, with respect to values like honesty, propriety, concern for others, then accountability among the government officials. Okay, all of these are something which is not there, in among, not practiced by everybody in the society. And this is basically because of a lot of changes that have taken place, lot of changes in the value system that have taken place over a period of time. So that is why we say that this crisis has caused, is likely the reason for this problem. Then second is the voluntary association as a money making venture. Now generally what happened, many a times you will find uh, that voluntary organizations have now become something like a money making venture, where they are getting large sums of donations from the local government or also from the government bodies and international bodies. So you will find that basically all these may lead to a lot of other issues like corruption, misappropriation of funds, lack of accountability, and a lot of allegations are also made against these agencies from time to time. And this is there not only in India, but also in other, places as well, in other countries as well. Okay. Then we have a lack of common perspective in social work related issues. So this is also one problem which may be there not only in India but also in other societies, where these societies are, kind of stuck in a state of transition. So certain issues which are related to individual autonomy or collective orientation, individual rights and responsibilities are generally very difficult to resolve. And these are often groups are influenced by westernization to varying degrees. They're also these are influenced by westernization, and a lot of these problems can be one of the reason for the this problem in ethics. Then powerlessness powerlessness of the social worker. In many times, you will find that generally social workers are not given any kind of a power to change situations. They do not have much choice, and these problems may make the work of the social worker very difficult. And this also leads to a lot of risk taking that they have to take at the uh, you know at the um, generally that they have to take a lot of risk if they want to go for some problem resolution at their own level. So sometimes these problems may be faced by the social worker. Normally you will find that there's a lot of lack of support from the civil society. They do not get much recognition from the government as well as from the society at large. So this is definitely something which needs to be, um, which is which may cause a lot of problems when social workers are they want to bring about any kind of changes or want to, contribute to bringing about changes in the society. Then there's also a lack of professional bodies and professional support. And this is very true for most countries where any professional body is not into existence. So, most of the you can say the training and support of social work professions that they need that is not there. Generally, if any social worker is being harassed for legitimately raising relevant issues, the professional bodies are not there to support. So basically, all these problems contribute to this further. Then also there is a lack of importance given to studying and discussing professional ethics. Normally, you will find that in generally not much suggestions or not much you can say work goes on into discussion of this of the thing of the issue of ethics, professional ethics, and they are not even given too much of importance in the curriculum. Students, they generally consider them to be very idealistic, where unlike something that they should practice in the field. And that is why you can say that all of these have led to these coming up of these challenges when social work while social workers when they are dealing with the problems. So this is all about for today. uh, so we are done with the second block, where we have discussed about the professional social work and also basic concepts of social work, discussing about the basic ethics related to social work, concepts of voluntary actions, okay, basic principles of social work, and also the various methods in social work. Now, any questions? If you have, does anybody has any question or a query related to what we have learned till now?
Thank you, ma'am. It's very useful.
Mariam, you're not audible. Can you be a little loud?
I said thank you, ma'am. It was
Okay,
very useful.
okay. Any questions, Mariam, from your side? You
No,
want?
thank you, ma'am.
There was somebody who wanted to ask something yesterday, but I think he said, Kamaruddin, was it you?
No, ma'am, I don't have any question. Today's lesson was very amazing and very helpful. I don't have any question. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, so Shabnam and Nasreen talking from you. Any questions from your side? By the way, I am really very happy that we are having so many girls here in the class, and it gives me, great deal of hope. Yes, Mariam, you raised your hand. Anything you want to discuss?
Ma'am, I don't have the PDF. How can I find the PDF in the lectures?
For the okay, see, this is available in eGyankosh. If you go to the website of the university, then
Okay,
you will find that there will be a section called as eGyankosh. Okay, I will just write it down so that you know. So basically, this is a eGyankosh is okay. I have sent the name in the message. So this eGyan Kosh is actually a repository of the university. Okay. And
okay,
it will be having all the PDF of all the different courses, including the PDF for your practicum. So you can get all of these books or these PDF from the online or only from this eGyan Kosh. So you can access the website of university, that is www.ignu.ac.in. Okay, I'll
okay.
just write down the website. Do you know the website?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just still write down. Okay, so it is www
Okay,
ac.in. Okay, so you can
okay,
go to this website and you will find eGyan course, or even if you just search the web, it is easily available on Google, a search engine, or any search engine. It's easily available. You can just search the web and write, like BSW121 eGyan course PDF, and you will get it. So you can download it, and if in case you don't have it in book form, you can always download it and you can study it online only. So
okay.
that's no problem.
Thank you, ma'am. It
Any
is
other
very kind of you.
related to the, yeah, thank you, Mariam. Any question related to the content?
No, no, no. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So since you are not having any kind of questions, can we just call it a day? So this is basically our class. Before we begin the class again on, I think the next class will likely be on the I think 12th, only 13th and 14th. I think we'll be meeting again on 13th and 14th of February. So till
Okay,
then, I really hope that you are going to just go through this particular course, and especially the blogs that we have already covered. Yes, Kamaruddin, you want to? Uh,
Yes, ma'am. I want to say that two blocks are finished.
okay. Yes. The first and the second blocks are finished. We are left with the
Uh,
third and the
and two other blocks are remaining.
yes, yes, they are left now. So we will be continuing. We will continue with them for the next period. We will do them in the next period, next two periods. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so
So
much.
when we meet again on 13th and 14th, we will finish up with the third and the fourth block. Okay. And I just hope that you will go through them. Try to go and read through them before. And they are actually general, so it's not much difficult to study. So you can just go through them, and then when we meet up again for the next two sessions, we will discuss with any problems or queries if you have related to this. Okay. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on the call, and I hope to see you all very soon. And till then, have a great time. Have a really great week ahead. Okay. Thank you for joining me. You can leave now.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
It was a pleasure having
Bye.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Goodbye, ma'am.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. The Gokash go.